In 1 Kings 13, there's a story of a prophet that is told by God to go and talk to Jeroboam. Mm-hmm. And he does. And he's told not to eat or drink and not to go back the same way he came. Mm-hmm. So he's offered food and drink, and he turns it down. But on his way back, another man, a prophet, says that an angel came to him and that he told him that he should come back and eat and drink. Mm-hmm. And so he did. Mm-hmm. And on his way home, he was eaten by a lion because he didn't. And the man went and got him, brought him back, buried him, and then told his sons when he was buried to put his bones beside him. So it looked like he was honoring him. Mm-hmm. I don't get the gist of the story.
Yeah, I don't either. I'd have to read it.
Okay.
So it's a big book. What's the problem with it?
I'm trying to figure out what is the point. Well, what are we supposed to get from that? Don't take counsel.
Okay. I see where you're going with it, Gary.
I don't understand what the concept is.
Yeah. Okay. Let's look at it this way. One of the ways to properly interpret the Bible, I think, is to use an acronym that I teach in a course called How to Interpret Your Bible. And the acronym is STOP, S-T-O-P. And the S stands for what's the situation. The T stands for what type of literature is this? Because you're going to interpret poetry different than you are law, right? The O stands for who's the object of the passage. Is it you? Is it ancient Israel? Is it some other party? Is it just the disciples? Who is it? And the P, is this passage teaching something that's prescriptive or just descriptive? Now, we don't get a prescription from everything we read in the scriptures. It could be just a description. Like, for example, David commits adultery with Bathsheba. That's not a prescription for us. Let's go commit adultery. It's a description of what David actually did. Now, this could just be a description of what happened. And the object of the passage is not us. The object of the passage was ancient Israel. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't get good insights from the Old Testament. In fact, Paul even says in 2 Corinthians 10, or I think it's 1 Corinthians 10, where he says, these stories were written down as examples for you. And then he goes on to say that there's no temptation that seized you except what is common to man, but God has given you a way out so that you can stand up under it. In other words, he's saying that the Old Testament stories were written down not to us, but for us, so we could see bad examples in the Old Testament and not emulate them, like David when he commits adultery. So not everything in the Old Testament is prescriptive. It might be descriptive, but the prescriptive element of it might be, hey, these guys did this poorly. Let's not do it that way, right? You see the point?
Yeah, I hear your point, but I'm still at the same. I'm at the same point. Is that what is the point? What was the?
It could just be a description of an historical event. In fact, there's something in the Old Testament that says, "Don't boil a kid in its mother's milk." Maybe there were Canaanite religions doing that, and God just said, "Don't do that." He doesn't say why. I know what it means. Okay, I'm not going to boil a kid in its mother's milk, but I don't know why it's in there.